Hey everyone, hope you're having a good Sunday. If you're a bear, you're having a good Sunday. If you're a bull, might be a little rough. Gonna wait for some people to file in and then we'll get going. We're gonna look at a whole bunch of stuff. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, BCH. We're gonna look at some longs and shorts for Bitcoin on Bitfinex. Just rearranging my screen here. Then we got EOS, BNB, IOTA, XRP, ONT. Making sure all my stuff's good to go. We'll give it about 60 seconds and then we'll get going. Bounce still underway, and we're going to be watching the hourly, or actually the 15-minute exponential resistance being tested right now. I got some bear attack spray, but it's not working. I think it's because the safety's still on. All right, let's go. Bill's here, so we can start. All right, so we're watching the Bitcoin bounce. We're watching 15-minute exponential resistance. If you are in a position right now, there is some nice accumulation going on for the Bitcoin bulls, and I've been staring at the order book for about the past hour. I was out when the dump started, and then got home, pressed some orders, put some orders in on my phone while I was gone, got home, settled in, and I just stared at the order book, and I was getting, just information. What's the state of the market right now? Obviously a dump on big bear volume, obviously a break of key support 7,000, but there is accumulation going on right now, and I'm just, watching the details to see if it's going to be enough to make any kind of prolonged bounce. So what I was watching, just in terms of short term, and then we'll zoom out and look at the bigger picture of things, but I was watching the longs and the short chart, and I was watching a very clear equilibrium pattern on this 15-minute time frame where we were chopping but getting a really tight range, and we ended up getting a bull break. But what was interesting for me was the shorts, and the Bitcoin shorts from the bottom were just continuously increasing, and I could see a scenario where they were increasing significantly, but I was seeing consistent buying pressure on Bitcoin down here just under 8,000 or 6,800 resistance. And as soon as 6,800 resistance broke, that's when some of these shorts were forced to cover. But you can see they're not disappearing, and there's not enough buying at the ask to cause any kind of short squeeze. There was a very, very mini short squeeze, and that's not even the right word or phrase to use, but it forced some of the shorts to cover with that break of 6,800. The question is going to be now, can the bulls form, can we just see decreasing bear volume on consolidation and increasing bull volume on continuation? And the increasing bull volume on that break of 6,800 is a good sign for the short-term bulls. But again, a ton of work to do because of the dump that we did see. So obviously, if you've been watching the videos over the past couple of days, we had the calm before the storm where we were trading sideways. We knew a breakout or a breakdown was coming. We got the breakdown yesterday. And then obviously huge follow through on that breakdown today. So I did enter some ETH position after I exited, or after the video yesterday, and I'll go over that trade real quick, and then we'll go into the details of the analysis. But for me yesterday, I entered ETH at 572.10 is when my first order filled. Then I wanted to go to bed, so I put a sell order in the 580s and another ladder down of buy orders in the low 560s. So I woke up, saw that my buy orders had filled, and then I saw the very weak bounce attempt, so I just exited break even. And on this current bounce attempt, I'm going to be doing the same thing, where right now I have an Ethereum position in the 530s. I entered in the 540s and the 520s, so I have an average in the 530s, but I'm being extremely cautious where I do not want to get into any kind of bear flag scenario, so I'm ensuring I always have cash for another leg down, and I take a little bit off with small profit to give myself more cash to lower my cost basis. And again, it's fighting the trend right now, so I'll probably throw in the towel pretty quickly and just get a small profitable trade because there is such bearish sentiment right now. Unless I see clues to change that, that's going to be my game plan. So the longer term time frame, very clear bear break on Bitcoin, obviously, but we are still in the equilibrium pattern. That has not broken yet. And you might be saying, well, I thought 7,000 was the higher low on the weekly. We never got confirmation of that because the daily chart never gave us that higher low and higher high. We never had the confirmation that our weekly higher low was established. It looked pretty good. We bounced 10% from 7,000, but we never got that confirmation. So here on the daily chart, we had the bounce, we had our higher low, lower high, bear break to a lower low. So we never changed the trend on the daily time frame with a higher low and a higher high. So that means the weekly higher low was never confidently set. So right now it's all about 6,450, and we are very close to this support level. We got within about 2-3% of that mark. And if that breaks, it is a very clear weekly bear break. And I mean, even just today, you can hear the collective sigh of the wind getting knocked out of the bulls, as it was just a huge push down with extreme RSI levels. And the RSI levels got so extreme because everybody was watching the same thing, and everybody was watching 7,000. And as soon as 7,000 broke, I mean, Bitcoin's 15-minute, this is the most oversold on a whole bunch of time frames that I can ever recall seeing Bitcoin. With the 15-minute RSI getting down to under 7, the 5-minute RSI got down to 7. The hourly RSI, and this is on Coinbase, varies a little bit, but hourly RSI got down just about to 11, and the 4-hour RSI got down to about 13. So bottom line is we got crushed on every single time frame, and we aren't seeing the V-shaped recovery that we were used to when bulls were, waiting in line to buy dips. That's obviously not the scenario we're in. We have a very clear bearish sentiment. There has been some news articles, the CFTC or CTFC, I'm getting those acronyms wrong, but you know what I mean. They put out, they're looking at the records of these exchanges for manipulation once futures trading started. But that article had been floating around a little bit. It's not like the article hit and then the dump fell through. I would call that just, icing on the cake, and that was already floating around. So I don't think it's a specific, reaction to news. I think it's a reaction to clear support breaking on a very tight daily pattern and breaking key support on the weekly, and now we're just looking down at our low. So we are looking for a 15-minute higher low and higher high for any continuation. And on every single time frame that you're watching this bounce play out on, you need to be watching the exponential 12 and 26 resistance. It's been a great guide at this point, and we're testing the 15-minute. If we get over the 15-minute resistances, we zoom out to the hourly, and then we look to the hourly resistances as the next hurdle that the bulls are going to have to get over. Keep in mind that every time we see a slow, drawn-out bounce that is not significant, we cool off RSI levels. So the hourly RSI has already gone from down at about 11 up to 25. So significantly cooling off. The 4-hour time frame has not cooled off much in terms of the RSI, but the short-term time frame RSI cooling off does give room for more legs down, which is why being very protective. Obviously, the shorts have had it very easy. Congrats if you are short. It was a very, very clear signal. We went over that a couple videos ago where it was just trading sideways, clear bear break, and it's done nothing but run down for the bears since then and led to significant fast profit. So a lot of people are getting discouraged in this space, and a lot of people are moving their funds out, going to Canadian MJ, going to stocks. That's definitely something that you have to be aware of, that if we do break bearish, it's going to be a great environment for bears trading. It's going to be a terrible environment for bulls trading, and people are going to be looking elsewhere. So that's something we're going to be watching as well. And you better believe that everybody in the crypto space is watching that. All of these, services and YouTube channels and everything that's popped up, the Merkle, everybody is going to be watching because they know that their revenue and user base and everything is going to take a hit if we get bear breaks. And we're going to be looking at downside through the summer into the fall, and potentially weekly oversold conditions we'll be keeping an eye out on if we break 6,450. So the next few days is all about 6,450 on Bitcoin. Now let's see some comparison on these other names and how they are shaping up compared to Bitcoin on this dump. So ETH on the daily time frame broke down, but we haven't broken the low of the dump. So the low of the dump, remember when ETH got way more oversold and beat up than Bitcoin did on the way down? We dropped all the way to 507. We have not broken that yet. And obviously Bitcoin on the daily chart has dropped well below to a lower low. So there's a difference there. And you can see that if you look at the ETH BTC chart, you're going to see that we had a very significant bull spike. And it's not necessarily, and there's that bull spike on the 5-minute time frame. And it's not necessarily meaning Ethereum is bullish. It's just meaning in this instance, Ethereum is less bearish than Bitcoin. So holding up a lot better on the daily chart. The question is, can Ethereum hold that 507 low and give us a daily equilibrium? Because that's what we would be looking for. If Bitcoin can hold 6,450 and bounce up into the low 7,000s, then we will look for a daily equilibrium on ETH. If not, we're going to be looking for ETH to head down and test 500 psychological support. So the bounce that's trying to play out on Ethereum, again, RSI levels very similar, not as oversold, but similar. The hourly RSI or the 4-hour RSI is down at 22 and Bitcoin was down at about 16. So there's a significant difference there. The hourly RSI cooled off all the way back up to 26 and 15-minute RSI no longer oversold. So again, every time we see this kind of bounce, we do have the potential to see another leg down. Although at this point, on all of these, or on these two names at least, the 15-minute bounce is significant enough to look for a potential equilibrium worst case, unless we see increasing bear volume. So equilibrium watch on the 15-minute time frame. We'll check back in by the end of this video and see how that's played out. Litecoin has broken the weekly equilibrium bearish. That's very significant. It does increase the odds that Bitcoin is going to break bearish as well. At this point, earlier I was saying Bitcoin was a 60-40 to break the weekly equilibrium bearish. Obviously, after all this bearish action, that's going to increase, maybe 75% chance that we break bearish on the weekly time frame. So Litecoin, we're down looking at the lowest price that we've seen in the last 5-6 months. More than that, so 7 months. That's down at 120, and we're heading down towards that level. We dropped, and we were about 4 or 5% above that mark. So look at the lack of support. If we break 100, there is very little support on Litecoin down into the $70 range. So we would really be looking at a lack of support for 20-30% if that level does break. Weekly RSI is nowhere near oversold. Daily RSI is approaching oversold, and I want to make that point as well for Bitcoin and Ethereum. Daily RSI did touch 30. We have been bouncing right off of 30 the past 3 times. So if bulls are going to rally, this is the place to do it. But again, still very, very timid. And we have to be very skeptical of the bulls. We have to be, obviously, I want a bull break in these markets. I want cryptocurrency to be crazy again and bullish and everybody partying and new people coming into the space. That's the fun way to do it. But I have to look at these charts unbiased and not let what I would like to see happen have any impact on what I'm looking at on a chart. So on Bitcoin, we have to be very, very, the bulls have to prove themselves significantly. Every time we see a bounce, we have to be skeptical and say, are the bulls really proving anything? Is there bull volume behind it? What could we easily see another leg down? What's the RSI levels at? And obviously our RSI levels are getting a lot more extreme, so we have to factor that in as well. And with the alert system, we adjust things where when we're in a bullish uptrend, we're going to have the oversold RSI alerts go off at a higher RSI. And when we're in a downtrend or a bearish scenario, we're going to drop those RSI levels down before they trigger these alerts, because things get more extended, more or less extended, depending on what your trend is. So Litecoin is weak. We're seeing a bounce here as well. 15-minute exponential resistance being tested. 15-minute equilibrium likely if we do pull back down and reject. And if we do not, if we see a 15-minute little higher low and higher high, again, we zoom out to the next exponential resistance, which will be on the hourly time frame, which rejected the bear flag overnight last night on all of these names. That's going to be the next key resistance to be watching as well. BCH USD. Weekly time frame. So again, no confirmation of the higher low and the bullish reversal candlestick from last week. So we're looking back down at that low again, and it's a similar scenario. Again, I keep pointing out how Bitcoin and Litecoin are a pair in terms of their correlation and similarity on the charts, and ETH and BCH are a pair in terms of their similarity. So both of these names, ETH and BCH, still have their higher low on the daily time frame from the previous dump, whereas Litecoin and Bitcoin do not. So 872.50 is the low to be holding. Bulls want to hold that level. Same thing I just said on ETH. The potential of a daily equilibrium is likely if the bulls on Bitcoin can hold 6,450 support. So zooming into the 4-hour time frame, didn't get anywhere near as oversold. RSI on the 4-hour right now is 27, so holding up much better than all 3 of the other names we looked at. The hourly bounce looks like a potential bear flag, and we're not oversold on the hourly. So we do have to be cautious of another leg down on all 4 of these names, because we have cooled off short-term RSI levels, and that is a possibility of a scenario. We did see the increasing bull volume on these names on that other leg up when Bitcoin broke 6,800. That's a good sign. We need to see more of that. We need to see another leg up with more increasing bull volume on these names to, again, have the bulls prove to us that this bounce is for real and not just another bear flag. These bear flags have been textbook on these dumps over the last however many weeks, where it's just bear flag after bear flag and continuation down. Have to put a stop to that pattern for the bulls to see any confidence. EOS USDT. Not a whole lot of history here on Binance, but a very clear lower high and lower low on the daily time frame. So as soon as we broke support of 1271, that shifted momentum from the bulls back to the bears with increasing bear volume. 4-hour time frame didn't get oversold RSI, so these RSI levels on USD, or EOS I should say, are the least extreme. So right now, Bitcoin has the most extreme RSI levels. Litecoin is in the same boat. Then it's Ethereum, then it's BCH, and now it's EOS. Pretty much the order we've looked at them in, and that was not intentional, but that's the way it's turning out. Hourly RSI, hardly oversold at this point. Multiple hourly inside bars to be watching, which means we have a nice little equilibrium on the shorter term time frame. Low of the dump, high of the bounce, higher low, lower high, higher low. Tightening range to be watching. The levels on EOS, USDT on Binance, 1212 support and 1248 resistance. That's the channel to be watching into tonight. Have to see a bull break for continuation. We're watching the exponential resistances again. If we reject from these exponential resistances, we're going to test support. And if we break bullish, we zoom out to the hourly exponential resistance, which again, everybody rejected from last night before we led to another leg down. And that's where we're watching for any kind of meaningful bounce to get above. If the bulls are for real, these exponential resistances on the hourly time frame cannot reject the price. Otherwise, that's a signal the bulls are not for real. BNB USDT, weekly big upper wick of profit taking. And the most important short-term support here is 1161 on the weekly. And that's the lowest price on the weekly that we've seen in just about 2+ months. So if that were to break, that means we are no longer in this little uptrend that we've been in for a few months. And that's going to be a red flag for the bulls on BNB. Obviously, a significant pullback here. We do still have a daily higher low level at 1359. Bulls are trying to hold that level. If that breaks, we're looking down at 1161 after that. So RSI levels on BNB. 4-hour did not get oversold. Actually, just touched oversold down with that lower wick. Hourly RSI not oversold at this point, looking like a potential bear flag or an equilibrium. Again, the magnitude of these bounces would lead me to believe that an equilibrium is more likely than just a continuation straight down to another lower low. But those are the clues we need to be watching over the next hour or so. 15-minute exponential resistance trying to get into support. Hourly exponential resistance did not get over those levels in the last couple of days, and that's what we're watching on the bounce. So you can see my analysis is getting quicker and quicker as we walk down this line because everybody's in similar scenarios on their shorter term time frames, and the exponential resistances are what we're watching. So the weekly chart here for IOTA USD on Bitfinex, again, no confirmation of the bullish reversal candlestick, no confidence that our higher low has been set, and the daily time frame, all out dump with our low of consolidation, couple days of sideways trading, and then continuation on big bear volume. Support is 133. We dropped down to 136, and the RSI levels got more oversold here than other names that we were just looking at, more than EOS, more than BCH. The 4-hour RSI got down into the low 20s. We're currently still at about 22. The hourly RSI is just now cooling off from oversold. Again, everybody's looking the same on the hourly exponential resistance for a couple days and a 2 candlestick bounce and potential to head back down and test the lows and see an equilibrium pattern play out. 15-minute is battling the exponential resistance, and we'll see what the volume looks like if we do pull back here on these 15-minute time frames. So if you're looking short term for oversold bounces, 15-minute and hourly is your time frame. If you are looking longer term for a swing as a bull, you want to be more patient and you want to wait for proof of a trend change rather than playing an oversold bounce. You know, these 4-hour oversold bounces are not what they used to be in terms of V-shaped recoveries, very quick 10% gains. That's not the market environment that we're in anymore. So if you're looking for longer term, I mean, we get V-shaped recoveries on 5-minute time frames and 15-minute time frames in terms of, you know, what we've just seen here. There are small bull trades to be had within there, but it's way more difficult than the bears have it. Obviously, with the trend in their favor, the trend is their friend. If you are looking longer term, you need to be waiting patiently. And an example would just be Bitcoin hourly exponential resistance. You can just say to yourself, okay, I'll make a long position and maybe bottom fish once the exponential resistance becomes support. That's waiting for the bulls to prove it to us and to prove themselves to a certain degree before we trust them, rather than just trusting these oversold bounces, which certainly have not been very profitable for the bulls over the past couple of dumps that we've seen in the past couple of weeks. So back to IOT USD, same as everybody else, consolidating. XRP USDT. So Ripple on Binance. Again, daily chart got very tight, just like everybody else. We had an equilibrium. It broke bearish at 655, and we dropped all the way down to 5.8. So again, bears have it really easy in this market environment. Still holding the low of the dump back from the end of May, and we will look for a daily equilibrium if Bitcoin can hold 6,450. Same boat as BCH and ETH in terms of where they are set up on the daily time frame. 4-hour RSI is crushed. It's down at 23. The hourly RSI still oversold in the low 20s, down at 24. And again, it looks like a bear flag. It's giving us some inside bars to be watching. 15-minute equilibrium, not really clear. So I would just be watching the hourly inside bars at this point. Exponential resistance, rejecting the price for a couple days at this point. And it's the same setup as everybody else, just a little bit more oversold than everybody else. ONTBTC is the most bullish chart that we've looked at out of this whole list. The weekly higher low is 7233 that must hold, but we do have a lower high forming and some profit taking. Resistance was 1246, and we pulled back from 11.6. So the daily time frame looks like an equilibrium could be forming to a certain degree, although it's pretty extended. Most important level to me is the daily higher low to see if the bulls can remain in full control, and it's holding at this point 9636 and 9667. That's the most important short-term support. If that level is lost, the daily uptrend is lost, and then we're going to be looking for the weekly chart to continue tightening with our high, low of consolidation, lower high, and we will look for a pullback and a higher low compared to 7233 if we lose the daily higher low of support. 4-hour bounce, RSI didn't get anywhere near oversold, much more significant bounce than everybody else that we've looked at. Again, this is a BTC pairing, so it is a little bit different in that regard, but we're clearly seeing some relative strength of ONT compared to BTC. We're battling the 26-period hourly resistance. Nobody else is anywhere near that resistance, but the bulls are still struggling at that level, and they're not breaking the lower highs. The last lower high is 1045, and we're topping out right now at 1035, so still hourly lower highs. We need a higher low and then a higher high to change the hourly trend on ONT BTC. 15-minute time frame, way different. Again, well over the exponential resistance and the most bullish chart that we've looked at. So checking back in on Bitcoin, 15-minute bounce attempt, still trying to play out. No red flags on volume. If we reject from these exponential resistance, which we are currently struggling at, and see increasing bear volume, that's a red flag that we're going to head back down into the 6,700 range and try and see an equilibrium play out. Best case scenario for the bulls, very low volume, 15-minute bull flag, continuation on increasing bull volume to head up to 7,000 psychological resistance, and then we'll look to battle the hourly exponential resistance up around $7,000 level. So again, hopefully everybody has a game plan at this point for longer term positions, shorter term positions. What are you looking to do? And if you are looking bullish, be very cautious, be very protective, and be very skeptical. The trend is your friend, and right now the bears have the trend on all time frames except for the monthly chart, and just barely holding on to a weekly chart that favors the bulls. Actually, no, it doesn't favor the bulls. Don't get me wrong there. The weekly chart does not favor the bulls, but it is still keeping the bulls in the game as long as 6,450 breaks. If we lose 6,450 support, we're going to be bearish on the hourly, 4-hour, daily, weekly, everything except the monthly. And we look at the monthly chart and we can say to ourselves, that's still extremely bullish. And the bottom line is Bitcoin on the monthly chart could pull back to $1,000 and still be in a just fine uptrend. Obviously, that's the last thing we want to see happen as bulls and, as cryptocurrency fans. But, if we drop, the more we drop down, whether it's down to 6,000, 5,000, 4,000, that's all the skeptics, they just get a victory lap. And that's going to really inhibit this space going forward. You can say this has happened many times before in market cycles and all that. Yes, absolutely. But we might have to wait a couple years for it to come back again because market sentiment is going to be so crushed where if people can say, yeah, it was an incredible run, but the price dropped 90% from the high, people are going to remember that, and people are going to look to take profits sooner on any kind of bull moves, and they're not going to want to hold on as long, and it's going to be a very different space psychologically for the market. So again, I keep saying, exchanges don't want this to happen. Anybody that has any incentive for cryptocurrency to still see popularity doesn't want this to happen. But at a certain point, there's not much you can do if the market forces are going against you. And it's going to be all about the next couple days. Again, can't drive it home enough. 6,450, a very important level. Let's look at a couple different scenarios as well. Could we break bearish from this weekly equilibrium and have one of those fake outs and then turn it around and see the bulls buy that dip and see a pretty decent recovery? The answer is yes, absolutely. Nothing is absolute in technical analysis. So we could break bearish and then see a significant recovery. But again, we don't want to be placing bets and hoping for that to happen, where if we do break bearish, and a lot of other people are going to move more funds away from the cryptocurrency space, have that money work for us somewhere else, and then come back once the environment changes and is more favorable. That being said, if you're comfortable playing bearish, that is just fine, and you're having a great time, and you're going to continue keeping your money on there. A lot of people say, counter the point that I make about the exchanges, saying, well, if we break bearish, people are still going to be trading and there's still going to be fees. But it's not going to be anywhere near as significant because average Joe trader and average Joe wannabe trader is not shorting this market. I would love to see a percentage of traders versus investors and holders. Once people are stuck holding their bags and that's the decision they're going to make, there's no fees for the exchanges there. There's no volume. There's no liquidity. And if we see that drop off, again, if we could see year over year numbers, if we were to break bearish the next 6 months, year over year numbers of Coinbase, new user registration, dollar volume of fees that they take in, it would be, I would expect it to be like 60 to 70% drop off at least. And that obviously completely puts a halt on some future expansion plans and can make you think twice about, how aggressive you're going into this space. And think about, Fidelity is looking to develop a cryptocurrency exchange. If we break bearish and all these numbers drop off and all these new users drop off, then that's going to make them less, that's going to give them less incentive to pump out these, tools and features that cryptocurrency traders do want. So let's do some Q&A, and we'll keep watching this bounce to see if it's, healthy, low bear volume consolidation. We'll keep an eye on the shorts and longs, watching to see if the BTC longs can see a higher low and higher high on the hourly for recovery. And I like watching the BTC shorts for more info than the longs. And that's just the potential for shorts to have to get forced to cover. That's what I'm keeping an eye out for. And you can see the shorts are not going anywhere. They're still, every little upside that Bitcoin sees, these shorts are sticking around. So it's going to require a significant multiple $100, market buying spree by the bulls to trap these shorts. Because again, the shorts and the bears are comfortable. They don't need the market to prove anything to them. They just need to stick with the trend and keep up the lower highs and lower lows like we have been for quite some time. So it's a completely different scenario where, getting the bulls to bail on a bounce is way easier than getting the shorts to cover on any kind of bounce. Got record viewers. Thanks everybody for tuning in. All right, I'm reading the YouTube chat room now. Declining weekly volume is completely normal. That's what happens in equilibrium patterns. And it's still declining even with all this volume. Again, I look at Bitcoin and I look at the Bitfinex exchange when I'm looking for volume, because Coinbase sometimes does have discrepancies, but that's one point that the bulls are liking. We're not seeing any huge spike in bear volume. We're certainly seeing it on the daily. We're not seeing it on the weekly. So that tells us we're still in an equilibrium pattern. When you break an equilibrium pattern, clearly the volume spike is a clue to the break of that pattern. So it's very important that the volume is there. Obviously, it's this, all-out dump is happening at the end of the week, so the candlestick's going to close here by default. But we would have to see increased volume for the rest of next week. And I would say if we're going to see a clear break of a weekly equilibrium, I'm going to be looking for Bitcoin. This week right now, we're looking at about 140. Last week, 146, 175,000. For a clear break of an equilibrium on a bear break, I would expect to see more than 300,000 coins traded that week. So it's very important to keep an eye on volume, and that was a good point. Pitchforks, I haven't done a whole lot with pitchforks. Some people like them. We have some people in the chat room experimenting with them. They give some nice channels to be keeping an eye on. So I suggest playing with them, but in terms of insight and my experience, I don't have enough experience to give any kind of opinion that is worthwhile on pitchforks. Equilibrium is higher lows and lower highs, and a bear flag is after a dump, just a weak bounce attempt on decreasing bull volume before continuation to a lower low. Bitcoin could die. Someone asked me earlier, could everything go to zero? And is it likely? No. But is it possible? Absolutely. Anything is possible. So we have to prepare for every situation, regardless of what we want to happen. So the bulls can still save this, higher low on the weekly compared to 6,400 here on Bitfinex at 6,425. It's just a lot less likely. It is still possible. They better get their rally pants on for the next, 4 days or so to see a significant bounce. But again, it's everything that we just saw in the daily time frame is going to have to happen again. If we see any kind of significant bounce, we have to watch the exponential resistance, which has rejected the last 3 bounce attempts. So even if we bounce up to 7,300, the bulls haven't done anything. It's just a lower high. We have to see a higher low and a higher high, get over exponential resistance. So it was, 2 steps forward and 4 steps backwards for the bulls' attempt to turn things around. And we're right back now looking at all these time frames have all these resistances back as resistance again. So it's going to be a long road forward for the bulls to save themselves here. I'm not all cash right now, although some of my orders may have filled while we've been live. One of my orders filled. I had an order at 539.49 to lock in a little bit of small profit and give myself, back to cash again. So I am playing these bounces. I'm just doing it very carefully, very cautiously. I'm not going for any home runs. I'm just going for some small gains. And it's because, again, the bulls are not proving anything to me that makes me want to hold longer term at this point. We have to see bulls give us a reason to hold on. EMA, I use the 12 and the 26 period. I'm just going to say, because I get asked 10 times every video, I use Fidelity for stocks or Interactive Brokers if you are international. Well, there's no short. Oh, if I could trade short on GDAX, it was a very, very, very clear entry for shorts on the break. I mean, again, the calm before the storm, just sideways trading. Bear break on the hourly, it could have been 7,630. It could have been down here at 7,543. Pretty much any bearish entry in the last 2 days has been a winner. And if I were looking for a bearish entry at this point, I'd probably be waiting for the hourly exponential resistance. I personally would not enter a bearish entry with the 4-hour RSI that's low. The risk to reward does not favor bearish entries down at these levels. So I would wait for the RSI levels to cool off, and I would watch the hourly exponential resistance, which has been a great entry point for bears over the last couple tests of that exponential moving average. $7,000 will be a resistance level if we can make it up to that point on a bounce. So here's our pullback, and we are looking like a 15-minute equilibrium is coming. So again, not an impressive bounce. Definitely ability to profit for quick flips, but bulls are not doing much of anything at this point to make us confident that we're not going to see another leg down. It's entirely possible. And if we see another leg down, 6,450 is going to be in play tonight or tomorrow. Higher risk bounces, if I'm playing against the trend, I'm using much less of my stack. So at this point, it's probably about 40%. And now that one of my orders filled, it's probably back down to 30%. I do mean resistance on the hourly, the 12-period EMA. I don't think we're going to stay between 6 and 7 for the next few months. That's too tight of a range and too long of a time frame. You can also, just from watching the order book, you can tell that liquidity is drying up. Obviously, we're seeing a lot more volume and liquidity right now, but Remember when we were seeing the bots with 40 to 60 BTC positions when we were at higher dollar levels? Now we're seeing 20 as a significant, on this whole dump, 20 BTC on the bid or the ask has been a big order comparative to what the order book has. That's $12,000, $13,000. That is very insignificant on the grand scheme of things. And it just shows you that, you know, back when we were seeing 40 to 60 BTC bots, the prices or the dollar volume back then was six figures of what those orders were. And here we are looking at 15,000 being our big orders. It's just a completely different environment right now. Bulls are trying to form this 15-minute higher low. They need to see a break of 6,068.68 for continuation on this bounce. And it needs to be on increasing bull volume. Volume is very, very telling. It's the prove it indicator. Bulls have to prove it with volume behind their moves. And they have to give the shorts a reason to want to cover. Now potential 15-minute equilibrium on the shorts as well. Longs just dropped off pretty hard. What do I think will happen on Monday? I think we're going to hit a temporary bottom soon. I think the bulls are going to be able to defend 6,450 for at least a day or two while these RSI levels cool off. Because even if we do break 6,450 tonight, you know, this 4-hour RSI is going to be down almost single digits on Bitcoin. And obviously things are getting more extreme than they have in the past, but you know, we're not going to see too much of a flush, in my opinion, under 6,450 if the 4-hour RSI is almost single digits. So if we were to bounce up to 7,000 and then drop back down, that's going to be a different scenario because that 4-hour RSI is going to get back from oversold conditions. And if we do get the bear break of 6,450, the next level is 5,873. The low point of this consolidation will then be the next major level. And the lack of support after that is going to be very attractive to bears. I would suggest not listening to a word McAfee says, but that's just me. I do not trade Forex. I haven't had the need to. I have more than I need to trade in stocks and options and crypto and MJ. If I'm ever, you know, really bored, I will look to Forex, but I don't foresee that happening anytime soon. And it's just been a great change of pace where it seems like the last year and a half, MJ and crypto are kind of, you know, playing inverse to each other, where if cryptocurrency is going bearish and is boring and not a whole lot's going on, Canadian MJ is off the charts. And now we're going to be watching US MJ for the next couple of years. So there's always going to be something. And that's why I keep encouraging people, you know, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't put everything into cryptocurrency and then be either stuck in positions or, you know, hit a roadblock in terms of learning. It all depends on what your goal is. If you want to see the cryptocurrency space thrive, you know, someone was getting on to me about being a trader and saying, you know, you're not helping the movement, you're hurting the movement with this volatility. And you have to think to yourself, if the movement is to get off the US dollar standard, we know the US goes to war to protect the dollar. To think that buying and holding Bitcoin is going to dethrone the US dollar from, you know, being the go-to currency, I think that's silly in my opinion. There's going to have to be, I don't think that's happening without riots in the streets and a complete financial collapse. So in my opinion, there's no correlation between holding your cryptocurrency and dethroning the US dollar as the standard of the world. So what's your goal? Is your goal financial independence and to profit day after day and to be a trader and to look all over the markets for different opportunity? Or is your goal to accumulate Bitcoin and just hold it until you die? Either one's fine. You just need to make that game plan and stick with it so you're not making emotional decisions in the heat of the moment. You know, if there's people right now who have been saying for the last, since 20,000, I'm holding Bitcoin, I'm not going to sell. And there are people that are now selling. And that's because they're reacting to their emotions and not sticking to any kind of game plan. And that's when people, you know, buy at the top and sell at the bottom. It's when they're reacting to emotions. Have not noticed an inverse correlation to SPY and BTC. They were very in line on the weekly time frame. SPY did break bullish a while ago. They've gone a little bit inverse the past couple of weeks, but let's just run a comparison real quick. So here's the bull break on SPY, and let's look at Bitcoin compared to it. So it was pretty in line until about, I'd say, the start of May. Start of May, we started pulling back in Bitcoin after the April bull run, and that's when SPY broke bullish. And you can see a very clear bull break of the equilibrium and follow through, and we don't have that in Bitcoin. To trade MJ, I use Fidelity or Interactive Brokers. People are giving up on crypto, absolutely. Have to see some kind of rally. You know, I mean, the April rally was great. The April rally for Bitcoin I had the biggest month that I'd had in a long time, and that definitely kept me interested in the space, where we went from 64.50 all the way up to 10,000. Those are big gains, and those will absolutely keep traders around. Could you imagine, you know, if we have a scenario where it's never going to happen because the exchanges are going to use bots to micro trade to prevent this from happening. But imagine if we had an exchange that didn't trade a Bitcoin, buy or sell a Bitcoin for 5 minutes. That would be such a red flag for traders. So you know that the exchanges are out there keeping that, at least the illusion of liquidity around when it's not there. And that's, again, something that we have to be keeping an eye on, the liquidity which continues to drop off and the volume that continues to drop off, which is directly correlated to an interest dropping off in the cryptocurrency space. And the articles, can you imagine the articles that we're going to see on a weekly bear break talking about how Bitcoin was a bubble and everybody was right and all the skeptics, as opposed to, you know, a Bitcoin bull break heading into the end of the year? It's just, I'm just trying to convey how, in my opinion, it's going to be so significantly different fundamentally, with sentiment, with everything, depending on how this weekly chart breaks. And I'm talking about the next, 6 months, the rest of the year. What everybody's going to be talking about. CNBC, Bitcoin was on CNBC every single day. Everybody that watches CNBC and picks up a newspaper heard about it because of the bullish action. And the bearish action, it'll be fewer articles and it'll be negative articles. Still no convincing bull break, or I should say bounce and follow through on the 15-minute time frame. Capitulation definitely is something to be keeping an eye on, but again, it gets to a certain point where if you're betting on capitulation, the risk to reward is just not in your favor fighting the trend like that and hoping that we see significant short covering and significant bulls buying the dip. It's absolutely a possibility, and that would be a scenario where maybe we get a bear break and then a quick turnaround and bull spike, but it's not something that I'm going to be putting my hope into in terms of trading. I usually go live every Sunday. The past couple weeks, I've been off because I've been traveling, and I'm going to be traveling again this coming Sunday, so probably won't be going live then. But try to keep it every Sunday. I was on a nice streak for a couple months there. Bitcoin can go down to $500. It can go down to $20. There is no bottom limit as to how low it can go. And there's no limit to how high it can go. So there is no scenario where we can say like, oh, if it gets to 3,000, that's the bottom. And you have to be cautious of analysts that speak in absolute. If I see an analyst say something is going to happen, that's a red flag, because that shows me ego, and that shows me the lack of understanding that no matter what kind of signs they're seeing, or no matter how confident that they are, that they can't be wrong. So if someone says, and that's something that I don't like about McAfee, where he's saying Bitcoin in June is going to go up to 15,000. Clearly, this guy is just talking out of his you-know-what. And the people that talk in absolutes, it's just something that, traders that have been wrong and have traded enough, long enough, and are wrong plenty. If you're trading for 10 years, you've been wrong a ton of times. And that's where you gain the humility, where you can say, this is what I expect to happen. This is my opinion. This is what's most likely to happen. But if I say this is what's going to happen, red flag. I agree. Bitcoin, I do not think it's going to zero, but it's a possibility. No, it'll always have a price. Someone will always be there to buy Bitcoin. Is the thing, people talk about ETFs and people talk about Fidelity making an exchange or NASDAQ making an exchange. There is going to be such less significant interest in people using these exchanges to trade cryptocurrency if we break bearish and just fade away for the next few months and see the price drop from 20,000 down to 4,000 and we drop 80+%. It's going to discourage so many more people from getting back into this game. And it's definitely something to keep in mind. And I promise you that everybody that's invested tens of millions of dollars into their website infrastructure or their trading platform infrastructure, they're sweating right now. So short's still high. Longs covered a bunch, or I should say longs exited a bunch. And 15-minute equilibrium is the setup. Everybody's struggling at the 15-minute exponential resistance. We can see 3 to 4K on Bitcoin. It's not going to happen anytime soon with RSI levels at this point. And again, daily RSI on Bitcoin's close to oversold. So even if we do break 6,450 in the near term, we're going to see a daily oversold bounce to cool off RSI levels. It's just a question of whether we're going to see a slow bleed for the rest of the year if that does happen, which is possible. We see a bounce back to 7,200. We dump back down to 6,200. We bounce to 6,800. That's what a downtrend consists of. Bounces to cool off RSI levels that lead to lower highs and then further dumps to lower lows. So there's other longer term time frames to be watching. So the monthly chart is something that has kept me saying Bitcoin is bullish, obviously, because of the significant run up. But look at these exponential supports. And if we see a bear cross of these exponential moving averages, which isn't going to happen anytime soon, it's months away at the soonest, but that would obviously be a longer term bearish scenario. Look at the MACD. We're close to a monthly MACD bear cross for the first time ever. And I shouldn't say ever, but since 2015. So we're on the cusp of notable bearish signals, and it's up to a hero to save us, to save the bulls. But again, we don't want to be in a scenario where we're putting ourselves in a situation where we need, a bottom of the ninth home run to bail us out. We have to be protective. This is our capital. We can't give it back. We can't give our profits back. EMA settings 12 and 26. All right, gonna wrap it up here. There's plenty of chart guys. We got chart guys and chart girls. I'm just the face. There's people behind the scenes. We got people helping out in the chat room. We're trading chart gals or training chart gals Dinsey to go live. Did mention Coinbase, and again, it's been floating around. It's not the reason for this dump, in my opinion. But if you're a trader or an investor in the crypto space, you want them to not allow manipulation. So when the price dumps like this, I don't really understand why it's such a negative reaction. I understand that people really don't like regulation, but if you want people with large amounts of money not to be able to do whatever they want with this price, there needs to be some kind of regulation. Otherwise, we will have a mafia Wild West situation in the cryptocurrency market where significant players or miners or whoever can do whatever they want, whenever they want to the price. So by the time, let's see, it looks like we're going to get a 15-minute higher low sometime in the near future, and we should see a break within an hour, about an hour and a half at the latest of this little 15-minute tightening pattern. We do still have a 3,000. I mean, the wait list is only growing because the people that join the wait list, now that it's over 3,000, you know, we let in a few people every single day, but obviously the people coming to the line are longer than the people we're letting in. So the people that finish the courses get moved to the front of the line, because you have to imagine a classroom with, let's say you have a classroom with 100 people in it. You can't let in 2,000 people through the door. It's not going to be the same classroom. But if you let in the people who have taken the prerequisite course, you know, whether it's whatever 101, the courses are trading 101, technical analysis 101. So the people that finish those courses and then we let them in, there's way smoother of a transition, and I have to answer way less elementary questions than the people who have not taken the courses at that point. So that's why we do that, to ensure that there's an easy transition in and we can stay organized and focused with new members coming in, and not really skip a beat in terms of moving forward and doing good things trading. And I just looked over 145 MJ charts yesterday, and I'm about to look over those same charts again to narrow it down again and narrow it down again, establish a game plan with, you know, teams on how we're going to monitor levels and how we're going to trade this over the next couple of weeks. But there is plenty of opportunity out there elsewhere in terms of technical analysis and trading, and we'll be back. We'll be back to the crypto space if we break bearish, and that's, you know, bulls throwing in the towel for the summer. We'll be back at some point. It's just going to take a while. Tons of people use fib retracements. I personally don't. I have a similar style, but it's my own style. And absolutely, play around with it, and if it works for you, use it. I can agree with that. Institutional investors are not going to get in this space without regulation. Hey, let's put $20 million in and allow, you know, thugs with established account sizes to do whatever they want with that $20 million investment of ours. They need security. They need backing. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. I hope you all have a good rest of your Sunday. Don't bury your head in the computer too much, but manage your positions if you're playing a bounce. And again, be protective. Bear's still in control here, heading back down towards the low. Still no sign of a 15-minute higher low forming. Thanks again, everybody. Really cool to see all of you joining in. Thanks for the likes and the shares and all the support. And we'll keep putting out videos. I'm not going to go anywhere. Even if we do break bearish, there's still plenty of information that shorts can utilize, and we can still be keeping an eye out for a shift in the market, but not going to be holding our breath. And here we are coming down to test the low. Let's just check in our RSI levels one more time. 15-minute, just getting back to oversold. Hourly RSI dipping back down under 20. 4-hour RSI still at rock bottom, 14 on Bitcoin. Daily RSI, 29. So another leg down. That daily RSI is going to be approaching the mid-20s, and the 4-hour RSI is going to be approaching single digits. Thanks again. We'll see you tomorrow with the regular old video. Have a great night.